Thank you all for coming back in. We are so excited to be with you today. I'm going to introduce your next presenter, who is one of my dearest friends and a very special human being, Miss Susan Goodpasture, who was a tribal social worker, director of social services for many years for Paula Band of Indians. She has started a tremendous agency called Acorns to Oak Trees. She has organized the State ICWA Conference solo for many years. She is just a powerhouse, and I'm very honored and humbled to get to do work with her at Acorns to Oak Trees on IEP trainings, and she is just one of my best friends, and I'm really happy to have her here. So please welcome Susan Goodpasture. Do you want to hold her?
I'll hold it.
Okay, then you can move.
Okay. So I'm going to tell on Tama right now because she's like, it's going to be really informal and there's going to be a couch. And I've not seen one person sit on the couch yet. I'm just teasing you. But I feel like I'd be really weird right now. Maybe if I had some friends up here to sit with. Just sit in that chair. Well, thank you guys so much for having me this morning. Very honored to be up here. Did not know I was going to be following Judge Lomayesfa. So I will do my best to represent. But thank you guys so much for coming this morning. And I am so excited to still be... Yay! Okay, we're going to sit on the couch. All right. You sit on the couch. I'll sit over here. Okay. Okay. So I'm really excited because as you've heard, I was a ICWA director for the Paula Band Mission Indians for almost a decade prior to founding Acorns to Oak Trees. So I got my start in Indian country. I'm Maidu and Paiute, member of the Susanville Indian Rancheria up in Northern California. My husband and our 4 little ones are members of the Paula Band Mission Indians on the Paula Reservation, just about an hour and a half away from here. And when I'm not going to go too far into the story, but I fell in love with working for my people, with my people. And so when I made the decision to leave the ICWA world and start Acorns to Oak Trees, there was a part of me that was really sad because this has become such a family. So many people in here I've worked with, over a decade with. I'm not that old, but like my whole career is with a lot of the people in this room and some who aren't, but it is a big family and I love this work. And then the more that I started to do the work that I do now, the more I realized I have not left the ICWA world. I am still very relevant. The work that we do is still very relevant. And I'm really excited that these ladies are up here. They actually interned with me last year, way before I had what I had going on now. They were probably like, what is going on with this lady? And trial by fire. We built the plane as we were flying it. But we have come so far in, our organization is just now 2 years old. And we've had our doors open for clinical services for just over a year now. So we are still very new, but we have gone statewide within that 2-year time frame. A big part of our organization, thank you. Thank you. Our education, outreach, and advocacy arm is funded through a service access and equity grant from Department of Developmental Services, and that's what funds our Harley's Hope project. You're going to see a clip of our video, our storytelling video, and we go out to tribal communities across the state, and usually in conjunction with a regional center, and we share our story about our daughter Harley and the story behind Acorns to Oak Trees, to really bring awareness about intellectual and developmental disabilities in tribal communities and to make it an easier thing to talk about and a safer thing to talk about with our community. Our whole hope of this project really is to create a village of support. And how that gets started, honestly, is just by having conversations and feeling safe to do so. And the more that happens, the more you realize just how many other people are going through the same things that you are. So I'm going to show this quick clip in just a second, but just to give a little bit of context, the reason behind Acorns to Oak Trees, and you can go to the next slide, just don't click on it quite yet. The reason behind Acorns to Oak Trees is because of our oldest daughter, Harley. She's 6 years old now. She's on the spectrum. And prior to this work, I was a master's level clinician. I had worked in child welfare for, I think, 6-7 years at the time. But it took having a child with autism to really understand, wow, there is so much that I did not know. And now my eyes are completely wide open on how much of a need that there is. Prior to having her, I didn't know what a regional center was. And now I'm like, how did I not know what a regional center is? And so that's one of the things that I started telling groups that I spoke to, especially the universities, is that making sure that you're really explaining to your students, everybody in this room is part of the Child Find system. The state, is depending upon you. The federal government is depending upon you helping to identify, locate, and get children evaluated who may have an intellectual developmental disability. And I can tell you, in my master's program, to be a marriage and family therapist, that was not told to me. And that is a huge responsibility that you have. And so it's really important to know what the resources are, to know the mechanisms that exist to get those kids evaluated as quickly as possible. That's a big part of the work that we do now. So once I realized, really early on with Harley that she was most likely going to end up with a diagnosis of autism, we started getting her in the services. I just thought, oh my gosh, how many kids have I worked with, over the years who probably had some kind of developmental delay or disability, because we work with a lot of at-risk kids, right? Just being honest, a lot of the families that I came in contact with during my time as the ICWA director, there was a lot of substance abuse, a lot of domestic violence type stuff. And those are all things that, create an environment where there's more likely to be a developmental delay or disability. And we can't have our eyes closed to that. Even as hard of a conversation as that is to have, that's just the reality. And so when I realized about this tremendous resource that existed that I failed to refer my kids to get them started in those services, I had a very, very heavy heart. I just thought, we got to change this. And so I had reached out to the Department of Developmental Services back in 2022. And I was really upset because I just thought, I failed these kids. I failed these kids as much as you failed these kids, but you get paid to tell me about it, right? Like, this is your job. And, you have to do better outreach to tribal communities, and that just wasn't happening. And so I met with the director of DDS. Her name is Nancy Bargman, and she's a wonderful human being. And Leilani Walters, who was the chief equity officer at the time, and she is Native Hawaiian, so we bonded right away. And I told them about Harley, and I told them about the work that I did and the huge disconnect that I saw between tribal communities and the regional center system. And I said, look, I've been the ICWA director for, 7-8 years at that point. And I said, I have never been contacted by the regional center, not once. I talked to the learning center, for the tribe. And I said, have you ever been contacted by the regional center? And she's like, no. And I have a really hard time getting anybody to come out from the school district too to do evaluations. And I thought, yeah, this can't be, because how my mind goes, and this is what I had shared with Jenny, back in the day, because she's very analytical and very linear thinking. So when she was trying to figure out what am I doing here and how does this all tie in, I'm like, think of these kids, what's going to happen to them if we fail to identify these kids. What is going to happen to them? What is their future? What I saw was that whole pipeline to prison. I don't know if you guys saw that study, but there's a whole pipeline to prison study, and it basically talks about how the education system ends up just being a pipeline to juvenile delinquency and then the prison system for a lot of our Native American youth. And my brother, I will share with you, is one of those kids. And I look back at him when he was a little boy. He had a lot of energy. He was exposed to different things growing up. He probably really should have gotten services, and what difference would that have made in his life had he gotten those services? So I think that it's just really important to remember that at one point, these little ones are going to be our future leaders, our future parents. And, we can truly change the whole trajectory of their life by getting them services early on. Oh, thank you. But yeah, so I'm really excited to still be part of the ICWA world, and having the opportunity to talk to future social workers is really special to me, because I remember, what it was like first starting out, and just thinking like, what is it going to be like? And I will tell you that a lot of the families that you come in contact with, I want you to, unless you're, a full-blown child development expert, and even if you think you are, I want you to still most likely make that referral to the regional center system, because it doesn't hurt. Worst thing, actually the best case scenario, right, is the regional center comes out and does a free in-home evaluation for the child, and they find out that the child does not qualify for services. That's great, no harm, no foul. But if the child does have a delay, and in the state of California, we have one of the most advanced progressive disability service systems, is if the child does have even just a 25% delay in any one of the categories, the child qualifies for free in-home early start services for 0 to 3, which is huge. I know that sometimes it can be a very touchy, sensitive subject to talk about with families. But please, if you don't, there's a good likelihood that nobody else will. A lot of the times we have very well-meaning family members and friends and colleagues and even pediatricians. I'm the Tribal CDC first Tribal Learn the Signs Act early ambassador. And, and the regional center system told me the same thing. They mainly rely upon pediatricians to be the first person to make that referral to the regional center system. But it's not happening. It's really not happening. And what's happening is our kids are not being identified until school age, if they're identified at all. And then they're struggling, and it stinks, and it's hard. And then they start to grow that aversion to school, and we see all sorts of other things happen because of that. And so kind of going back to my main point of just, having those conversations, even as difficult as they may be, they're so crucial. And even when you're looking at placement, I can think of, one family in particular who I had done a removal and a placement with another family member, and that family member was not on board with her getting any kind of regional center services, and she was delayed. She was significantly delayed. And I pushed to remove the child from that placement. There was other things, but part of that was because caregiver was not on board with getting the child services. And for me, at the end of the day, Linda, you'll hear Linda and I preach, you always act in the best interest of the child, even if it's not a popular one, even if it means that it's not, placing with the native relative. We want the child in a placement where that child has a chance to grow healthy and to thrive, and whoever's going to be dedicated to making sure that happens. The other big part, and I think that I'm sure it's probably been touched on before, is, finding therapies and finding companies that are culturally competent, that can provide some culturally tailored services. That is a tall ask in this field, I will tell you, because how many tribal native providers there are, companies that do this? One, us. So we're really trying. We're the first tribal organization to be vendored in the United States to do pediatric therapy in these areas. We're really trying to expand our clinical reach throughout the state as well. We're making a lot of head ground in Southern California, primarily because of Santa Isabel. I'm going to give a huge shout out to them. They have some grants that they have written our organization into, and because of it, we have been able to do tremendous amounts of work and growth and provide free therapeutic services to kids who really, really need it. And they've opened it up to any tribal kids in their area, and that is huge. So we're really excited to be growing and hopefully adding more clinical services and reach throughout the state. But at this point, I would just love to open up for any questions or comments. And I don't even know where I am on time. How am I doing on time? Good? Okay. Yeah. 10 minutes? 15. Perfect. Okay. Any questions? Or comments? Oh.
Hi, my name is Michelle Dominguez. I'm currently working under a grant to provide services and resources for Native American families. I guess it would be maybe a consensus of all of us is how do we get resources far out on reservation land? Because what I'm finding is sure, there's families that are coming forward. And again, a lot of people do not know about Regional Center. The reason why this is close to my heart, I have 4 children with autism. I am Native. When I was seen at Southern Indian Health many, many years ago, I came school age asking, my kids are having these behaviors in class, and they told me maybe they should get checked out. So I get referred, comes back, they have autism. I go back, I say, what do I do now? School district will take care of them. Don't be misled, people. The school district is only going to provide what they want to provide for your child. And so I went great lengths, did a lot of due process, special education advocate, a lot of stuff. So here I am now dealing with adult children as they transitioned out of San Diego Unified at the age of 22. Nobody had told me that there are direct support and special day programs. For some reason, I don't know where that gap is and why, and so I'm pushing really hard, and I definitely want to talk to you some more, but about why aren't other schools and school districts just here in San Diego County alone know about these programs? For people like me, I've had children sitting at home now for 2 years because I work, and I'm like, I don't know how to get them resources. I don't know, and a lot of people don't want to come out here to Alpine to service my children. So I work in Kearny Mesa, so I commute every day to Kearny Mesa to make sure that they get their supports. They wait around for me after I get off of work, and we commute back home. So that's my question, or I'd like to know, all of us as a consensus, is how do we get services out this way and out for our people out here so they can, benefit from therapy and whatever it may be that the parents may need help with.
So that's a whole nother presentation because there are so many reasons why. And I am so sorry to hear that's, but that's sad. That is a very common experience, right? And I hope you're getting mileage reimbursement for your time traveled to get those services. I was just actually having a conversation around this with, is it Athena? From Viejas, Alitha. And one of the conversations that I keep having with the state, because I'm still very close with them, San Diego Regional Center and a lot of the other regional centers are now, the work that we did, the advocacy that I did, led to the Tribal Early Start Outreach Initiative, where regional centers are prioritizing doing outreach to tribal communities, which is amazing, right? But I've told them from the very beginning that's just half of the problem. To address the service access and equity barriers that exist. The other part is and I told Leilani, I said, we're going to create a problem when I go out and do these outreach events. It's a good problem, but it's going to be a problem because, case in point, I said, I'm going to come and say there's these amazing services and life-giving resources, but you have to show up. And how are you going to show up? And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's very hard to get services out there, to get companies to go out there. And I told them, I said, I know that I'm not the only one, I'm not the only native, but I am the only company that is going to go above and beyond to trying to find ways to get out to those communities, because it's so hard. The only way that I'm able to do it is through multiple funding streams, because the reimbursement rate from the regional center is just not enough to pay my clinicians. The reason why your service providers are not rushing to go out to the tribal communities or any rural community for that matter is because of what they call window time. It takes time for that clinician to drive out to the home, to do the treatment, and then to drive back, right? So with some of our rural communities, that can easily turn into 2-3 hours that you're paying for somebody that you're getting, and so you may break even on your reimbursement rate from the regional center, maybe on, best case scenario. But then what happens if the client cancels? What happens if the client no-shows? We don't get to be reimbursed for that. We don't get to charge for that. And what most companies do, and this is what I found out from the clinicians that I hired, they don't get paid. So what do you think happens to workers? Imagine if you went to go and do a visit to one of your families and then they weren't there, and then the county said, our tribe said, oh, sorry, okay, well, sorry that they weren't there, but, because we can't bill for that, we're not going to pay you. That's what's happening. So when you think about how that affects the workforce, people aren't going to be lining up to do those positions. If they're not going to get paid, they're not going to want to do that, right? And so how do we find ways to combat that? I'm not the expert in that, especially for all the other companies out there, but thank God I've got a lot of experience in programmatic development, and I've built my organization off of multiple funding streams to offset the cost of my clinicians, so I don't have to do that because I think that's wrong. But it creates a real challenge. And so one of the things that I was sharing during the break was like how I survive as a company, and I have to compete with high wages. I had to compete with the state's wage. I have to compete with the state's the retirement. Same for the school districts. It's so hard to draw clinicians out to our organization. And all I'm doing is like, I swear that we're better. I promise you that we're better. Like everything that drew you to this field in terms of wanting to deliver best practice and treat kids in the way that that they need to be treated in terms of like clinical treatment, right? Because if you're bound by insurance regs and all of those sorts of things, like you're so pigeonholed into how you can treat a child, even though that they would benefit from all these, sensory regulatory activity type things. Well, you can't do that because we need you to focus on handwriting. Okay, well, how's the kid going to sit down if they're like jumping off the walls? Okay, that's really the goal. But it's taken a lot of funding streams, a lot of, grants, like I said, Santa Isabel, like that has made it so we can do what we do. For other companies, I don't know, but just me personally, we can have a conversation afterwards. Other tribes that are willing to allow, that write us into grants and things like that, or allow us to apply for grants on their behalf, that is going to make it possible. And that's what we're doing in other parts, is to expand our clinical services in more parts. And my heart really is to those rural communities. The regional center up in Susanville, where my home tribe is, they only offer remote services for the majority of everything because they can't get clinicians out there. And so they're actually funding us to do clinics 1 day a month, to go up and just do assessments. And same thing for Valley Mountain Regional Center in Central California. Same thing's going to happen with North Bay. I'm very good friends with the executive director for San Diego Regional Center, so that could even be something down the road. So I'm working really hard on my end, but just so you know, it's a very complex issue. Sorry, that was long. Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Hello, I have one.
Oh,
sorry. Hi, I'm just thinking of the students in the room who have not yet graduated, maybe going into the field. And I know you mentioned the important role they have as future identifiers of folks, of children who could possibly have a developmental disability. Do you have any words of advice for them when it comes to when they're working with a family, noticing these signs and trying to start the conversation, knowing that autism, things like that are so stigmatized and can bring up a lot of shame for families? Would you have any words of advice to them about starting that conversation?
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. Even with some of our families, we can tell when they walk through the door where they're just okay, don't don't say the A word, not ready to go there yet. You know, how I've presented it to Sam is like, I look at this as like free in-home tutoring. If you could have free private education for your child, like, wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? I would. So I've phrased it like that, like it's a free, you know, it's free private education, you know, for this limited window of time. And a lot of the kids that end up getting the services, they end up graduating. They end up, you know, not needing the services. It's just that 0 to 3 window is such a critical period of time where so much can be done. And so I just kind of tell them, like, it's so easy to have a 25% delay. Like, if I was measured at this point, I probably have 25% delays in multiple areas. So if we can get the kids, right? Probably all do. If we can get the kid free services, you know, why not? There's other states that have long waiting lists. So California is the only entitlement state. I don't always like the word entitlement, but I do really like what comes along with that particular entitlement is that, you know, it means free services for the kids who qualify, and 25% delay is just so minimal. It's so easy, and it doesn't mean that anything is wrong with your child, you know, but if they could benefit from it, why not, right? It helps with school readiness, I guess is how I'd frame it. Do you guys want to say anything? Put you on the spot, Jenny.
Miss Linda has a question.
I just want to say to the social workers that are in here too, when you are going out on cases and you're placing, and sometimes like Susan said, you know, because I've done this job for over 40 years, starting here at Southern Indian Health and working for my tribe for almost 20 years. So I have a lot of experience in ICWA. I have the pleasure of working for that beautiful, brilliant lady on that stage, Miss Susan, as like the cultural person and the ICWA person also. The thing is that when you're placing, make sure that if they're showing some kind of signs of that, the people that you place them with have that knowledge also. You know, make sure that you hook them up to whatever tribal organization there is, that they can hook them up with Susan for that training. You know, this is what they're experiencing. This is what we're seeing, so that you can catch it early, just like Susan said, because it is about prevention. And you heard Michelle over there talking, her children fell through that crack. And once they hit a certain age, you know, they can't be seen. And then you come up with that dilemma, what am I gonna do? You know, so just use everything that you learn from everything today, you know, and it's a whole different thing for us as Native Americans. What she's doing, like she said, that's the first one in the whole state of California. And I know her in the nation. And I told her, when she started this, I know you're gonna go statewide. But her next step is nationwide, because she's brilliant. She really is. And I knew that from the time I met her about 10 years ago. So you know what, just really keep that in your mind, because this is a whole new arena for our children that are in ICWA placements.
Thank you. Linda brought up a good point. You know, being familiar with those developmental milestones is so critical. We have a table in the back there, and I want to give a shout out to Wynell. She's one of our parent navigators. She is amazing, phenomenal, and we have another parent navigator who may be watching us online, so I'm going to give Ramey a shout out too. Ramey up in Northern California. These ladies really help families navigate the various systems, the regional center system, the school district systems, the IP process. It is so challenging. And back to your point, Michelle, the sad part is, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You have to become the expert in these areas. I've said it during my IP meetings. I shouldn't have had to change my career and do what I'm doing to get my child what she needs, but I did it, and I'm going to do it, because if I have to rely on you guys telling me what she could benefit from to help her grow, you're not going to do it because it comes down to resources. They're going to protect their resources. Sorry to say. So the more you know, the more that you can help and protect your kids, get them what they need. Our organization is here to help you along the way. And we're also in the process of creating a developmental milestone tracker app, which is really cool, which I will make sure to get that to Tamara when it is live. It should be live by June. With that, you can even give that just like a quick little like, hey, you should download this developmental milestone app, because I know that it is hard to have that conversation. But if from the privacy of your own home, you can enter your child's information in and it asks you certain questions, we have it so where it's weighting the answers. And then if it even detects that there's going to be a 25% delay for a child, it will automatically refer them to the regional center based off of their zip code, which is like, I'm so proud of that. We're cooler than the CDC's milestone tracker app. Yeah. So, and it's culturally tailored. It's going to have all cute little native babies. So the app will continue to, expand. I want to be able to provide like informational little videos about like, atypical crawling. What does that look like? Here's a little video to reference. So more to come on that. But, question.
Hi, my name's Mackenzie. I'm a graduating master's student from San Diego State, and you came and spoke to our class, our Title IV class. So I just wanted to thank you so much for bringing this to the attention in this space for everyone who's here, because in social work, we don't talk enough about the intersections of intellectual and developmental disabilities and what that means for our work in child welfare. And I think something that really calls to me is the compassion that we need to have with families when we're having these conversations or wanting to do these referrals, because there's a very real and understandable fear of systemic involvement, and also those fears about what this means for your child. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes when social workers see a family presenting with fear, they think resistance, which is not a word we should ever, ever use with our clients. They are not resistant. Mm-hmm. They are experiencing challenges and barriers, and they're vulnerable. And so I think that, like you said, if a caregiver is absolutely unwilling to meet a child's needs, okay, that is a concern, and maybe we need to really do something there. And we should have grace with families and be patient and not view them in a negative or condescending way. And I just wanted to say that because I don't think very many people think that through deeply. Yeah. But it's important.
No, I love that. And I love that word grace, because it is so crucial for the work that we do. And then, thank you. Yeah. It's come along, it's a long journey. Even though I've changed my career, this is a huge part of my life. We have twins who, were just recently also diagnosed with autism, and it hit me just as hard with Harley. I wasn't ready to talk about it for a few days because it's just like, you just know the label, and you know that you also don't know. I think that's the hardest part for families. And so there is a whole range of emotions that comes along with that journey, and just knowing that like you can't judge somebody for how they go about that journey. Our website hopefully will have more and more resources in the months to come to support families. So if you ever want to direct your families to go to our website for more information, we'll have more videos. We have a pretty cool video. We probably don't have time to show it. It's like 8 minutes. Yeah, we don't have time for it. I'll have Tamara send the link out, but it's about the importance of cultural competency and improving service access and stuff related to this that might be helpful for you guys to share with your families. So.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Rodriguez. I am a graduating MSW student from SDSU. I was Season's intern for my first year of my program, short and sweet. That interning at that place at Acorns Oak Trees honestly has helped me more than you know. I think going into that field specifically was really hard for me. But I learned so much. I learned just the accessibility issues, the workforce issues. And I think something that really stuck with me personally was me and Susan had multiple conversations of like, what are you trying to do here? Because she was very into just developing. And I was trying to understand what I was getting involved in. So I was really just asking so many questions. But I think one thing that we talked about and that really stuck with me was that us as social workers, teachers, like educators, people who interact with children every day are not required to have this training to see these signs. And I thought that was so interesting because it was something that's on us. We're removing children, we're interacting with children, we're educating them, we're doing all of these things when for most of their lives, really, more time than their parents sometimes, because they're at school with us or they're in our possession. So we should be having that workforce training of how to identify all of this stuff. And I thought that was so interesting that no one is required to have that. And I think when Susan had laid that in perspective for me, it really shifted my way of thinking of this is not just a stigmatization issue. This is not just a barrier to this one population. This is an overall systemic issue. And I really saw that that's where Susan was coming from and why this is so important. Yes, this is focused for Native populations, but there's so many other programs and so many other families who are dealing with this every day that don't have the resources. And I knew nothing stepping in. So when I actually have a family member who has a young boy who was just diagnosed with autism last week, and they didn't know how to get that diagnosis. They didn't know what to do, but because of this internship, I knew about the regional centers. I knew all of this. I knew what to look for. I sent them to Susan's website, and we got that diagnosis, and he got his IEP, and it's great. And I didn't know any of those things existed before, so no, it really does like hit so home with me, and it was so short, but it really have meant so much to me, and I will take this forever. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Olivia Thomas, and I'm currently an MSW student at San Diego State as well. So when I was an intern for Season's Acorns to Oak Trees program in business agency, my nephew was, I think he was one and a half, and Season had taught me all about the developmental delays and all of that, and I noticed some in my nephew. And it was a hard topic to bring up to my sister and her husband and the grandparents, my mom and dad. And to this day, they're still in denial, unfortunately. But he did get diagnosed about a month or two ago, so now they're trying to get him his services that he needs. But when I was a current intern, it was hard because I knew what to do. I wanted to help, but my sister and my mom and dad, they kind of just blew me off because they were just like, no, like, he's fine. Like, all children are like this. But knowing that what I knew and having Season here in my life at that point in time, I was just like, no, we need services for my nephew. And, you know, it's definitely been hard on my family, but just having that topic, that reality for so many Native families, you know, it's definitely a conversation that is hard to bring up, and people can be in denial. And I just want to say thank you, Susan, for allowing me the opportunity to be an intern for you, starting up and all of that.
I think we're over. But thank you guys so, so much. And we will be outside. If you guys have questions, we'd love to meet all of you. Thank you.
you.